In rhyming slang, what is a rubberty-dub?
What's the groove in groovy?
And can you speak dizubble-dizuch?
Don't skedaddle and don't be a square. We're getting sendy with youth slang, backslang, cant, Polari, and more on this episode of Words Unravelled.
Welcome to another Words Unravelled. I'm Rob Watts from the YouTube channel Rob Words.
And I'm Jess and Rob, author of etymology books, including Useless Etymology. And today we're talking about some slang. It's going to be a cool time. We'll give you some props. We won't be too square. Who am I kidding? We will be such squares.
I think being square is one of our things, but we will be square about the word square as well and look at where that came from. Jess has very cleverly given you an example of some of the slang terms that we're going to be getting into. We're also going to be looking at types of slang, Cockney rhyming slang and the like as well. But we should maybe start with the word slang itself, because the word slang is slang.
Yeah, it is. It totally is.
Probably. It's one of those words where we're not 100% sure where it came from, actually.
I like the slangje kjeften theory, and then some of the variations on the word slang that existed in the 19th century. Like slangwanger was a 19th century American English word that means someone who uses abusive slang, or quote unquote a ranting partisan.
What was that first one that you mentioned?
Slangje kjeften. There's a Nordic phrase which means to sling the jaw, but also carried the implication of abusing with words. And it's probably not where the word slang came from, but I like it. And it could be related to at least slinging and terms like that, like slinging words around.
And we can look to all kinds of languages for theories of where the word slang comes from. It seems such a coincidence that the French for language is langue, right? Which is slang, essentially, without the S in front of it. But there would be no reason to stick an S on it. So it's not a particularly strong theory. Another possible source is Scots, which has slanger, which means to linger or to waste time. The suggestion being that we take this term, originally it refers to the people that use it, and then it becomes a term for the way in which they speak. This is what I'm talking about. That would mean that slang started off as slang.
That sounds like the best suggestion to me, because that would make it a back formation, essentially, from slanger.
Right. One who slangs does do slanging. Yeah. And what they slang. Actually, that's worth mentioning as well. Sling is slang a past participle of slang rather than slung? Maybe. That's one of the suggestions as well. Another one is there is an old term for fetters, for chains, that was slangs.
Interesting.
So could it be a reference to the fact that slang was often used in the criminal underworld, which it was? I mean, most, a lot of the slangs we'll talk about start off as, there are other words for criminal slangs, aren't there? Cant, which we know is from the idea of similar to chanting. It's from the Latin for sing. What term am I trying to think of that means a criminal slang?
Are you talking about like an argot?
Well, that is another good one.
That's a different thing.
That's a French word, but we don't know where the French word comes from. Sometimes pronounced argot. I can't remember what the word I was trying to think of was anyway. But as you can see, there's plenty of terms for slang.
Some of the more linguistic-y terms people use for canting and for slang is like specialized jargon or cryptolects or anti-languages or secret languages or pseudo-languages. These are all implying that they are a language used in a particular circle or for a particular purpose that then extends into pop culture or, the previous version. Would you still call it pop culture 400 years ago? I think so. Still popular culture.
Now. It was pop at the time. Yeah, an interesting thing about forms of slang is that, unlike, most languages which are designed to enable communication with as many people as possible, a cant, criminal slang, deliberately designed to be obscure to anyone who is not in the know. We should at some point probably mention Polari during this, the gay London slang that developed actually from, again, a criminal slang, then a sort of entertainers slang. We'll get into all of these, but you already kicked off by saying we're going to have a cool time.
A cool
That's one of those words that is now on our lips all the time, but started off as slang, isn't it?
We obviously have more literal meanings of the word cool, but it entered a slang context as early as like the 1700s, but it was in phrases like a cool thousand for money amounts, which you would think that was a recent term, but it absolutely isn't. The OED has it dating back to 1721.
No way.
And same with cool-headed, being calm under pressure, which that makes a little more sense because hot-headed also dates back relatively far as well.
So if we're talking about like a cool thousand, what's cool about the thousand?
It's probably based on the notion that it's a large amount of money that has been fully counted or reckoned, so it's not active, if that makes sense.
It's not hot.
That's the way it's explained. But cool as slang for someone stylish or clever or fashionable or attractive is definitely a 20th century invention. A cool kid shows up around 1918. This is also probably thanks to, and this is going to come up a little bit frequently, but Black music culture in the 1920s had blues titles like Cool Kind Daddy Blues. And it was more popular in Black slang, Black American slang, than it was among everyone else until like the 1940s when jazz became more mainstream. But Zora Neale Hurston uses cool as the way we use it now, as a term for approval, like that's admirable, that's excellent, cool, in 1933. And that's one of our earliest recorded instances of that in literature.
And is it from the same culture that we get words like square, the sort of antithesis of cool?
So square is also jazz slang. It sort of connects to some earlier uses. Like in the 1800s, we had a square meal already. And the idea is a full, solid, substantial meal that like gets you through the day. A square could also stand on its own as a word for a square meal too. So if you were having a square, it meant you were having a square meal for a little while in the US.
Right. Having a square sounds like having a shocker.
You're right. Exactly.
It's having an absolute square.
We've talked before.
Or like when Jess locks herself in her office and just to read and read and read. Don't disturb. She's having a square.
She's having a square. But the earlier cousin of an old-fashioned person being a square actually dates back to like 1752. And it's because a square toes was a precise or formal or old-fashioned person, like a father or an old man. And it came from the style of men's shoes in the early 18th century that fell out of fashion. But the slang use of square, as far as we use it now, is from U.S. jazz slang in the 1940s.
And it's a bad thing. It should be a good thing, shouldn't it? General neatness, reliability.
Jazz is so free-flowing. Squares are stiff and regular and boxed in, and jazz is imaginative and rhythmic and the opposite of that.
I don't know which philosopher said a square with a horn makes you wish you weren't born every time he plays with a rinky tinky tinky.
Another
heuristic. Oh God. Oh, sorry.
Another fun one from this era. It says groovy, which I didn't know is quite literal. It's originally from the notion of the grooves in a record.
Yeah, when you're in the groove, you're with the music, right? You're in the groove with the stylus.
I also pulled from the Historical Thesaurus of English some other older words for cool or excellent. My favorite from 1828 is supernacular, which is from the sham Latin word supernaculum. Supernaculum literally means upon the nail, which comes from an old drinking game where the drinker had to turn their empty cup onto their thumb. And if droplets of wine spilled off of their thumbnail, they had to fill the cup back up again and drink more. So supernaculum is an excellent wine that you could wish to drink to the last drop, and supernacular describes that.
I'm definitely having supernacular. That is going in my vernacular. Hit us with some more supernacular historical idioms.
I had heard this one, but I didn't understand it. This is a bit of an idiom, but all wool and a yard wide from the 1800s describes something that's genuine or authentic or of the highest quality. Like cheap fabrics were made of smaller scrap fibers, like shoddy pieces. We've talked about the word shoddy before, I think, but that were narrower than the standard yard. So all wool and a yard wide means someone who is trustworthy, honorable, and sincere, like a whole yard of good quality wool. Another one was, I don't have an explanation on this one, but Bobby Dazzling.
That one's quite well known in England, by the way, because there was a TV presenter. He presented an antiques program called Bargain Hunt. His name was David Dickinson, and he spoke like that. And when he found something he liked, he used to say, "It's a real Bobby Dazzler."
Fantastic. This says it came from the States, so I wonder if it transatlanticized itself, but it sounds more British to me.
It does when it's said like that, doesn't it? In that context as well.
I also like VHC. It sounds very turn of the century. It means very highly commended. That's VHC.
Yeah, that sounds like something that would be an abbreviation written on a school report or a military dispatch, doesn't it?
Then you can say it in your transatlantic accent.
I'm not going to do it.
This historical thesaurus of English also has some of my favorite Southern isms that I still hope are in frequent usage. I've at least come across them a bit, but things like rip snorting, for example, like a rip snorting good time.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Mm.
I'm down with that.
It's kind of Davy Crockett notions of like, I don't know. I'm having trouble explaining this because
what's getting ripped and what's snorting.
I mean, it sounds obvious to me that it's like.
Yeah, I know it does. It seems intuitive, but actually, if you break it down, it's not at all intuitive.
I would assume it's a twist on rip roaring, right? Which is a little bit older. Having a rip roaring good time is boisterous and violent, and rip snorting adds like a horse or a cow to the idea.
Yeah, you can roar or you can snort, right? If you're having a good laugh, you might be more inclined to snort than roar.
Another one from this era, or from the era we were just talking about, like cool and groovy, is props. Like giving someone props. It's short for propers. An interesting article that I found about this in The Atlantic, Ben Zimmer wrote about this for a while, and he kind of called out the OED for not giving Aretha Franklin credit for this. She uses propers in the term. Well, she uses propers in particular in the song "Respect." So, all I'm about to give you all my money, and all I'm asking in return, honey, is to give me my propers. Is the line from that song, and then that led to the shortening of props.
I had never picked up on that word being in that song.
She famously sang songs a different way, slightly differently every time too, which was why it was a little bit hard for them to film her in Blues Brothers. I remember this being an anecdote about that movie because she's in the film singing. It's either this song or one of her others, but either way, it was hard to get her on camera because the lip sync was tricky with the recording of the song. Because she always does it a little differently, which is great.
Right. She couldn't mime to herself.
But Zimmer called out, cited William Safire talking about this too, but he argues that her use of propers was the clearest bridge between the earlier term propers, give me my propers, and the slang noun props, which carries basically the same meaning. And then the OED updated it.
And it means giving credit, essentially.
Yeah, it means giving
someone
me
the RESPECT I deserve.
Their due respect, their approval, their compliments, their esteem.
I like it. I'm enjoying doing all these positive terms. Isn't this nice? It's good for the soul.
Am I led to believe that you have some less positive ones?
No, I haven't really gone down the sort of specific semantic zones, just like one theme. What I've been looking at is types of slang. I got pretty deep into Cockney rhyming slang and, in fact, Australian rhyming slang. I want to talk about both of those.
I would love that. We've brushed the surface of Cockney rhyming slang before and offered some examples, but I don't know anything about Australian rhyming slang.
Well, what's happened since last time is I found this adorable Victorian glossary of slang that includes contemporary Cockney rhyming slang. So I thought I might try and test you on some of it. See
Excellent.
if you work out what any of it is. So if I were to say Brown Bess to you and Brown Joe to you, what would those two words mean, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I've heard this one before, but I don't remember.
Brown Bess or Brown Joe?
I don't know. You're gonna have to tell me.
It's yes or no.
Yes or no? Ah, very nice.
That's not very helpful. Those monosyllabic answers suddenly become dual syllabic. But what are you going to do? Here's something. Everton toffee. Are you aware of Everton toffee? This is like a mint candy that's enjoyed in part of Liverpool called Everton. It's actually where my brother-in-law's from.
Is it coffee?
It is coffee.
Hey!
It is. Very good. Oh, what else rhymes with toffee? Just found nothing else. But yeah, you got there.
Easy.
In the rhyming slang, you've got various things like references to famous people, items of food referring to something else, or parts of London, which are really notable. For example, you have chalk farm, which refers to a part of your body. Can you guess which one?
Right arm?
I mean, it's not as specific as that. It's just arm.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So you can talk about your chalks as your arms. Here's one, though. This one refers to an animal. And if you get this right, I will give you £1 million. And after conversion, you'll still be left with quite a lot of money. The place name is Charing Cross. Which animal is that rhyming slang for?
Is it a horse?
Oh, what?
Yep.
I don't have £1 million.
That's all right. You could just tell me about
How
some
the
more
heck
words.
did you get that?
Hoss. Hoss is short for horse in American slang.
Hoss. Oh. Yeah, okay, so you got there. You got there the wrong way.
Oh, okay.
Because the pronunciation of Charing Cross in London in the day was Charing Cross.
Oh, okay. So it's
yes, so you'd have an horse. Oh man, that was an expensive coincidence.
I couldn't get yes or no, so I had to redeem myself somehow.
What I find really adorable is looking through the terms that are very much of their time. Now, historically, Britain has had an insane monetary system involving various different denominations, by no means decimal. The shilling, the farthing, etc. And so you still have lots of rhyming slang that comes from that. For example, a shilling was an Abraham's willing, or a rogue and villain, depending on how lazy the person was feeling in their pronunciation. You had a bottle of spruce, which was a deuce, which is slang for a tuppence, a 2p piece. A currants and plums, which was thrums, which was slang for a 3p piece, a threepence. Camden Town was a brown, which was a nickname for a penny. Covent Garden was a farden, which was just a lazy way of saying farthing. I say lazy, I just mean like a dialect way of saying it. And you had Goddess Diana, which was a tanner, or a sixpence. And there's one more that speaks to some further London slang, which is Battle of the Nile. If you can guess what item of clothing a Battle of the Nile was, I will give you £1 million.
All right. Let's think. What would have been? No, I can't. I don't know. It's got to be some kind of rhyme that I'm not thinking of.
It's a hat, actually.
It's a hat. Oh, okay.
If you know your Cockney, you'll know that Cockney for a hat was a tile.
Oh, there we go.
Is this song called Any Old Iron? Any old iron, any old iron, any old iron. You look neat. Talk about a treat. You look dapper from your napper to your feet. Dressed in style, brand new tile with your father's old green tie on. Oh, I wouldn't give you tuppence for your old watch chain. Old iron, la da 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 da, la da 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 da, I diddly I die, pom pom. That went on for so much longer than it was supposed to.
It's sometimes slang on slang, right? So like tile is slang for hat, and then you've got layers.
Thrums, juice, fard, and tanner. These are all slang upon slang. And then because we get the transportation policy, this new and horrible way of punishing people by sending them to the other side of the world. I don't mean because Australia is horrible, although at the time it would not have been a pleasant place to be sent. This becomes policy. And a lot of the criminal underworld gets transported to Australia. And so the slang that they've been using to basically hide their intentions from the police is also taken over to Australia. And so there is a very rich rhyming slang tradition in Australia too. Some of it is the same as the Cockney rhyming slang, but also in New South Wales and beyond, they developed their own rhyming slang. And I think it might be more fun than the Cockney rhyming slang.
Oh, let's hear it. I don't know anything about this, so let's go for it.
So I like that they call a pub a rubberty dub.
Oh, that's fun.
I'm interested, actually, if anyone's watching and that they're aware of whether or not these are still in use. I mean, I'm taking these references from, again, 1800s, so maybe not. But an immigrant was called a Jimmy Grant, so he could be a Jimmy.
That's funny. See, that rhymes all the way through, which is nice.
Yeah, it's very good. You're right. It's a extra strong. They would call it a rime riche in French. That's a very pretentious reference. You can rhyme more than one syllable.
Rime riche in the midst of our slang talk.
Here's one that could only have been coined in the Antipodes, and that is Captain Cook, which is to have a look. Captain Cook. Yeah. Noah's Ark, which was originally an ark, but became a shack. Shark. Yeah. You could describe someone as apples. You were describing them as apples and spice, which meant nice, which I think is
nice.
cute.
That's cute.
But here's one that has made it into British English. I don't know if you ever heard this in American English, but it's the word chunder.
That sounds familiar.
So to chunder is to throw up. It's to vomit. You can always hear the chunks in the word, can't you? It's not horrible.
I like it.
But it's thought to come from Chundaloo of Akim Fu, which was a cartoon character created for an advert. I can't remember what precisely it was an advert for, but they think that Chundaloo was rhyming slang for spew, and that's why we talk about chundering. We talk about spewing, essentially. And then another good one is to do a Harold Holt, which means to bolt. But again, there's a story behind that one. Yeah, Harold Holt was an Australian Prime Minister who just disappeared. Presumed drowned. He'd gone swimming off Victoria in 1967, and he went. And since then, people have been talking about doing a Harold or doing a Harry, which is to bolt, to disappear.
Should we skedaddle to another topic?
Yeah. Skedaddle, is that slang?
I would say it's slang. It's definitely American slang.
Yeah, it's hard to draw the line between dialect and slang and all these other things, right?
Yeah, it dates back to the Civil War essentially, but in particular, the first examples we have of it are from the American Midwest before the war, particularly in Indiana dialect or slang. I wouldn't say that sounds like slang term to me. So one potential source is the Northern English dialectical term scattle, which means to scare or frighten, which would make a lot of sense. To skedaddle is just kind of a reduplication of that first syllable. And then the earliest military examples, and one of the reasons it got big in the States, at least, is probably because we have newspapers from the 1860s saying that Confederate soldiers skedaddled when danger approached.
Yeah.
So it's a little editorialized. We've got the very similar term vamoose, which is actually older. I would think that, I know it's from the Spanish vamos, but which makes perfect sense. It's not that surprising, but
which is just let's go, isn't it? Or we go.
Yeah. And it shows up in the 1830s, and it's an American frontier term, essentially. And it's a little less like skedaddle is more run away, and vamoose is let's go.
And if I can sort of shoulder barge in here, just because I did say earlier that I wanted to mention Polari, at least briefly.
Yeah,
here seems like a point to do it. I'm not going to go deeply into it because we did go into it into another episode, but I was just doing a bit more research into the Italian influence on Polari, because if there is a sort of linguistic influence from a foreign language in Polari, it's Italian. I mean, the name Polari itself, it's got this Italian ring to it. And a lot of the words have got this Italian ring to it. If you want to describe something as wonderful in Polari. So this is the underground gay slang used in London primarily during the 20th century to be able to talk about your life, your gay life, without obviously giving away that you are homosexual, which, during periods there was criminal, later at least treated as a mental illness. So prejudiced against no matter what. And yeah, words like Kazi, for example. Kazi is a word that left Polari and entered broader English as slang for a toilet.
Ah.
Yeah. And it's from Italian. It's from Italian casa, meaning house. So it starts off as meaning, a house in criminal slang way back. And then it starts to mean a house. I think Martin will beep that. He'll hate me saying that. And so it becomes a toilet. But also the Polari for a gay man is an omipolone, which is man, woman. The omi bit, they're coming from the Italian uomo, which is a man, for example. And then the other word that is probably the word that's most prominently sold as being a word from Polari is naff, which I've heard it explained as not available for effing. It's almost certainly isn't that. That's a rationalization of it. Yeah, this is one of the scourges of words Unravelled, isn't it? These rationalizations of things into acronyms. But you could talk about a naff omi, right? So we know that omi means man and naff means dreary man. And it's thought to be from the Italian naffa, which meant sort of despicable person, rather than it being from this, judgment based upon how sexy someone was. I think one of the earliest recorded references, is Kenneth Williams in Round the Horn. So this is a comedian, a gay comedian, playing a character that spoke a great deal of Polari, and a lot of the audience didn't realize that he was doing it necessarily, but they did enjoy the flowery words. And he talks about naff little gnomes, so garden gnomes. And he's definitely not talking about their lack of availability for effing, I don't know.
It's actually kind of adorable.
Yeah, it is. But anyway, sorry, I interrupted you speaking about, you were talking about some Spanish influence in slang in the United States. And I thought, okay, I'll just work in this little Italian.
No, I think that's perfect. I think this is a good transition too, because we get a decent amount of modern slang terms from gay culture in general and LGBTQ culture, like the modern use of the word ate, or like ate that up, or ate and left no crumbs, are these are compliments that mean that someone performed exceptionally well. They looked incredible. They delivered a perfect joke. They look awesome, whatever else it is. But it's from Black and Latino slang, gay slang in New York City. And it also popularized terms like slay and serve and reading, for example, which that one came up recently in another discussion I was having about like modernized slang. I write about these for a dictionary publisher.
We also took from a similar source, and we did talk about this before, the idea of spilling the tea, didn't we? The tea being
exactly
the truth, but also a sort of oblique reference to transgenderism or transvestism. I know we don't use that word much anymore, but
and certainly at least partially popularized by Lady Chablis, which you mentioned last time, which is wonderful.
Correct.
Reading means essentially in these contexts, sharply pointing out someone's flaws or inconsistencies or behavior. And like it appears in reality TV sometimes too. Like RuPaul's Drag Race involves like reading challenges and things like that. And the idea here is you can even say, hey, the library is open, which means you're available for being read or being being torn apart in a witty or incisive kind of way, or roasting someone. It's a different kind of roasting.
I enjoy the extensions of the metaphor that come with it. It's clearly part of the fun is that wordplay.
It's a little bit tricky to follow whether a term was popularized through, especially in the States, it's a little harder to track whether terms originated from Black American culture, Black gay American culture, or gay American culture, because a lot of these get pulled together. Like slay, for example, has kind of been all over the place. And who popularized what and when is a little harder to clock.
There's another aspect of Black musical culture that I did look into, actually. Have you heard of Dizzubble Dizutch?
I have heard about it from you.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned it to you an hour ago. Yeah, but
No,
Dizzubble
I haven't.
Dizzutch. So you know how Snoop Dogg, for example, will talk about shizzle my nizzle. This use of this is as a sort of insult. Well, it is a spin-off of something called Dizzubble Dizzutch, which is a way of speaking. It's a slang, you know, a bit like pig Latin.
Yeah.
You're rearranging words. Well, with Dizzubble Dizzutch, all you're doing is you're putting is and izzy into every word. And the best example you'll find of this is a song called Double Dutch Bus by a guy called Frankie Smith from 1981. And there is a whole, I want to say verse and chorus, but there's just a whole middle section of it is entirely in Dizzubble Dizzutch. And it is completely incomprehensible. But at the same time, when you see it written down, you go, oh, okay, I can work out what's going on here. Because the refrain of it is Wilsey ilze plizein Dizzubble Dizzutch, which is we are playing double Dutch. And it starts with his a gizzles, yizzle his av to mizuv is out, the wizze, sizzo the gizeyes can plize bizaskit bizzle.
This is very silly. I love it.
I don't know if you followed that.
No, I didn't. What did you say?
I said, hey, girls, you all have to move out of the way so the guys can play basketball. Bizasket bizzle.
Amazing. That's perfect.
Really good fun if you can get your head around it, but very difficult if you can't.
Very much like Pig Latin, or like you've talked about, what's the French metathesis slang thing?
It's called Villain. Yeah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's something like that. Yeah, because I was on about Stromae being just maestro, the two syllables of maestro swapped around to give the name of the very popular Belgian music artist, Stromae.
That's how, well, it's similar to how backslang works, right? But backslang is backwards, right?
I was also looking at backslang. I'm very glad you led us there because
Excellent.
There are a few of them that we're using all the time without realizing it.
Oh, are we?
Well, the most obvious one I think is yob, which is backslang of boy.
Are we using yob?
Oh, we're using that a lot in Britain. I don't know if we're using that in the States. We talk about a hoodlum. We would call them a yob, which is, yeah. And in London, among British Jews, they have yok, which is quite similar, but it's koi backwards, but that's the same as goy, which means, a Gentile as well. But here's one that really interests me. Because we talk about a name as being a moniker. One of the theories behind the word moniker, because its etymology is otherwise unknown, is that it is backslang for iknam.
Oh, man, no way.
Yeah, from which we get the term nickname. Yeah, we rebracket an iknam and it becomes a nickname. But before we do that, we also reverse iknam and we get moniker, which I think is kind of amazing. And that is what's written in like the OED as a possible source for it.
Fantastic. I love it. I love it. That's one of my favorite things I've learned today. I
there are a few others that I think have been used both sides of the Atlantic because they can refer to denominations of pounds and dollars. But you have neves, which is the number 7 backwards. You have a roof, which is a 4-year prison sentence, usually. But you also have a pinnif, which is a fiver, which is what we call a £5 note, or it's a $5 bill, which is actually backslang of finnip, which in turn is a form of the Yiddish for 5, which in German is fünf. So it's a sort of slight alteration on the German fünf.
Well, that's fun.
Reverse it and you get pinnif. And one more that's thought to possibly be backslang, a very modern one, kayfabe. Kayfabe refers to, in wrestling, essentially the fake portrayal of real life. The idea that this is a real sport with real beef, when we know it's not, unless you're very young and it's important to you that it is real, in which case it's real, so it's real. But it's thought that might be a kind of backslang for be fake.
Oh.
Kayfabe.
Yeah, so some of these get twisted, right? It's not just a straightforward reversal of the word. That's like you add your s at the end when you pluralize these two, and that also makes it kind of it twists these words. Like in Beck slang, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like woman was originally just namau, and so namau is turned to nemus or namus for women. And then cool can be Beck slang for to look. And then knife is e-think, which I like, which I guess that one's just straight backwards. But girl is el-rig. And then the police is esclop, because that one's gotten switched around.
Yeah, well, you have echolop and you
Okay.
have slop as well, because slop is so echolop is literally just police backwards, but then because they don't like the police, they call them slops.
Amazing.
Jess, before we finish, can you bring us up to date? Because I keep dragging us back to the Victorian era. Can you educate me on some modern slang, some that I can use to ingratiate myself to the youth?
We could go with Gen Alpha era terms. I write about these all the time.
Yeah, Jess is my go-to person when I'm getting confused by something that I literally sometimes send Jess emails where I have not understood what the hell someone's going on about, because it's just so full of it's a sort of modern corporate dialect as well that's inspired by millennials attempting to use Gen Z and Gen Alpha slang.
Oh, it's the worst. Like the grind set. That one bugs me so much, because I've seen that on LinkedIn before. It's the mindset centered on the grind, which is the worst.
Oh, yeah, I'm not into that. Also, I had a debate with someone in a bar the other day after a few beers. It probably got more heated than it needed to, about describing something as a vibe or saying someone has aura, stuff like this.
Oh, yeah.
So they told me, yeah, but that's millennial slang. And they might be right. I don't think of it as millennial slang. I feel it's newer than that. But either way, when I hear it being used, I find it tragic.
Vibe is definitely millennial slang. That's such a vibe sounds a little more Gen Z-y to me. But
yeah,
aura and aura farming is internet slang for like deliberately or accumulating or displaying aura. Aura is older, and it's this sense of like the aura around you, of course. Aura farming is from video game slang, where players perform actions to accumulate like points and experience and whatnot. So the resource being farmed in real life is social prestige. And
right.
you can aura farm by doing cool stuff and looking cool doing it, essentially.
Okay, so yeah, you're accumulating aura.
Yes, indeed. But no, I would agree that aura and vibe date at least decently back to millennial era stuff, but I think they're used differently now.
Well, they're used differently grammatically, aren't they? That's one of the things. You say something is a vibe, and you could grammatically use it that way beforehand, but it would mean something very, very different. There was an argument about whether certain people had Riz or aura.
I think we're past Riz now.
Yeah, sure. I don't even think that was sticking around, is it?
One of the reasons that these terms emerge is that they are not understood by parents and teachers and things like that. And then the instant they're clocked at the journalistic level, and the instant you find them in parenting magazines, then they're not fun anymore, which is why, like, I mean, I think people will joke about 6, 7 at any point now, but it's not like a cool, fun thing for kids to say as much.
Yeah, I think only our generation is joking about it now.
Yeah,
our generation
right.
upwards, is using it at all. Yeah.
They don't last very long. Like a few months ago, I wrote a piece about the word girding, but I don't think that it will stick around. And I haven't heard it since I wrote about it. So I kind of feel like maybe I helped kill it by writing about it for a publication that primarily focuses on adults.
Well, at risk of sounding the ultimate death knell for it, what does girding mean?
Oh, it's ridiculous. It is a blend of Jug Talk meme formats. Jug Talk was maybe a segment of TikTok users who share brain rot memes with that are like packed with inside jokes. For example, yeet is much older and was first found in memes like this. And that's pretty obvious. Like it is imitative of something being yoked through the air. But girding, this is several levels of weirdness. In these memes, girding is described as doing something smart but risky. And there are also acronyms like IKIAG, or which means I'm a keep it a girt. Again, I'm having a hard time explaining this.
Wait, so is it girting?
GURTING.
Oh,
So
okay, it's that American thing. I've been hearing it as girding the whole point. I've been thinking about my loins.
Girting.
Yeah, okay, girting.
Yeah, gotcha. And it makes it more obvious when you learn that there was a character in these memes called Gert, who responds to the word yogurt with the word yogurt. Yo. Yeah, anyway.
I actually kind of respect that.
But you often find it over, like, usually it's like a blurry or distorted image of like wildlife footage or something, like a cheetah running in a blurred form, and it has text over it that says girding is doing something very smart but very dangerous. And but that's also not how it's used. Like, that's how it's defined in these memes, but that is not how it's used at all. It's yeah. But it's also
that's the whole point, isn't it?
Yeah.
The fact that there's a disparity. It's confusing us, and we can't get our heads around it.
It's supposed to be confusing. Mm-hmm. One that I actually kind of like, and I'm okay with, and I think it's a little older than some of these, which is why, is getting sendy. You know how the term send it has been used in like action sports like skiing and climbing and things to mean like if you're gonna send it, you're gonna commit enthusiastically to something. So you find sendy and send it together in sports forums well before it was picked up by like TikTok and whatnot. But getting sendy means being bold or daring or ready to go big in action sports contexts. And then also just in general too. And I kind of like that one. I'm like, okay, yeah, I get that. One that I wrote about recently that made me sorry that I wrote about it was mogging. And now this is well past Gen Alpha. I hate this word. I hate it so much.
Yeah.
It is short for the acronym AMOG, which stands for alpha male of the group, which first appears in like manosphere and looks-maxing circles. And an AMOG was a dominant man in a social setting who's super attractive and has a big jaw, and he's very successful with women and mostly makes other dudes jealous. It's terrible. But to mog someone means to outclass them so thoroughly that they appear inferior by comparison. And one of the things that made it escape the bounds of the manosphere was that there's a streamer called Clavicular, terrible person, who
making some interesting life choices for sure.
Yeah. He recently went to court over a video in which he was caught shooting a dead alligator in the Everglades. And the judge was really hot in a traditional manosphere kind of way, like big jaw, like the way dudes fantasize about hot dudes on the internet. And it was funny because he was said to have been frame mogged. You can also be like hair mogged or jaw mogged if you have better hair or a stronger jawline. But
the whole point of Clavicular is that he is the ultimate in jawlines, right?
Yes, supposedly.
So for him to be mogged is pretty serious.
Yes.
Okay, so let's bring everything together here. We've talked about Cockney rhyming slang, we've talked about Polari, we've talked about criminal slang, and now we've talked about Gen Alpha, Gen Z, we've talked about manosphere slang. What do these all have in common other than the fact they are slang? Is that they're deliberately exclusive. The point is that you have to be in the know to understand them. And if you're not in the know, they don't want you to understand them for various reasons. And that's what unites the slangsters, the slangers, the slang slingers, the slang wangers at the Victorian era and today.
Yes, well, this has been fun, and I'm sure.
What's that word? What was that word that you saw? Super nacular.
Oh, yeah, that's a much better word. This has been supernacular.
Yes, it has. It's been quite expensive for me, but it's been fun. Thanks a lot, Jess.
We'll see you next time on Words Unraveled.